To vax or not to vax? That's become a big question. There's vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, and while no one's getting forced, you could lose your job if you don't want to vaccinate. So I want to have a look at both sides of that. And one with the people choosing not to vax, they're a really diverse group. So I wanted to have a look at the individual groups. That group could include people who don't want to vaccinate for religious reasons, because they don't trust the government or big pharma. People who fear is around it, or ambivalence. And fear could be something like fear of having needles or fear of going to hospitals or missing work. Another of the big groups might be people who are choosing not to vaccinate because of health reasons. People who are very sincere and pure with the way they approach their health, and the idea of a vaccination is really invasive. So a lot of these reasons are the exact same reasons that people choose to vaccinate. Health reasons, trust in the government, maybe not religious beliefs, but a societal or cultural belief. The second part of this, I want to have a look at the court challenges that are coming up to challenge the work mandate. We'll start off looking at the individual groups of people who are choosing not to vaccinate. And I'm going to do 5 different groups there. I'm going to do people choosing for religious reasons, for health reasons, mistrust in government or pharma or conspiracies or whatever that one is. I'm putting fear and ambivalence in one group, and also a group who are choosing or not taking up vaccination because of access reasons. Lots of these groups will be overlapping, people's reasons will overlap. This is a complex issue and it's pressing buttons all over the place. So we'll just finish giving these a good shuffle to see what's my question. How will their stance on not being vaccinated continue? First group is religious groups, or are choosing not to vaccinate for religious reasons. We'll give their situation, the action they'll take, and the outcome. Oh, I forgot to say, I was going to use this card as a signifier for choosing not to vaccinate. I hope that's in frame. Next one is people choosing not to vaccinate because of health reasons or health choices. People choosing not to vaccinate, oh, that one's coming out upside down, because of mistrust in the government or big pharma or any sort of authority system. People who are not taking up vaccination because of fear or ambivalence. And the final one, people not taking up vaccination because they don't have access. So it's interesting to see the difference between the groups. Those choosing not to vaccinate because of their faith, it starts with the lovers. Their situation is they're committed. They've made their choice. They believe in that higher power, and they believe they have the path forward. It's unshakable. The situation, or the action to take rather, is that actually looks to me like they will choose to do home medicines. Maybe some will choose to vaccinate because of work reasons, but I feel that this is around home remedies, and the outcome for them is it will meet an impasse. This approach is, it's really delineated. It says to me that they won't budge, though I can see here some might because of work, but also this is my signifier card for people who are unvaccinated, and there may be a real issue in not being vaccinated for them. The next group I wanted to look at was people choosing not to vaccinate for health reasons. And that's this one, Magician, King of Pentacles, and the Queen of Swords. The situation for them, it looks to me as if they have been very vocal, very active, very clear and organised in rallying. The action to take, this looks like money might be poured in to support any challenges here. We may have more court challenges. And also, if this is health, this would also be the health sector. The outcome for them looks to me like there will be continued defiance. Look at all the swords in this final row. Continue to be defiance and a separation. They will separate themselves. Again, there might be a court order that says they have to vaccinate and take the jab. But there seems to be a lot of money poured in to their fight and their claim. I guess these people are also would be in this group of mistrust of Big Pharma, but it does make me curious about what's funding their process, who and what. This group is the group who are not taking up vaccination because of mistrust in the government or mistrust in authority, and they start with the reversed fool. Their situation is they take it as an utter cutting through of their personal right and entitlement. It also makes me think that the fool reversed is about, being foolish, not listening to advice, being a law unto yourself, even recklessness. Their issue with the vaccine is really this affront to their personal freedoms. The action they will take is very defensive. It doesn't look to me like it will change their beliefs or their views at all. We've got the defence card, 9 of Wands in the middle, and that's also a card I use for an inflamed immune system. So a little bit like what we've got here. There may be a COVID response to this group because of their recklessness. The outcome for them is painful, lots of jabs. I suspect this is the group that goes down fighting, the people who don't believe that COVID exists, who are in the COVID ward on respirators, still denying that there's a pandemic. This group is the ones who are ambivalent or fearful. And with fearful, I don't mean fearful in the way this one might be around fear and control. With this fear, it's more literal, like a fear of needles or fear of missing work. And their situation is they just don't know what to do. This one I would say is hesitancy. They're waiting for other choices. They're waiting to see what happens. And this has been my coronavirus. I don't even know if I'm in the middle. This one has been one of my coronavirus cards. See, there's the virus there. So these people just haven't made a choice yet. The action to take is, and this represents their fear, some will get around it. Some will continue to block. I guess the ones who recognise it as a fear can turn this into strength. This one reversed to me can sometimes mean phobias, but the outcome for them is emotional satisfaction. It's almost like they go from having no choices to being satisfied with their choice. And they might be satisfied with their choice to not decide, because this one it doesn't look like it wants to decide. I hope that makes sense. This last one about access starts with the Queen of Cups. And I guess I would see this as support networks and non-government organisations reaching out. That flow does have the 10 of Pentacles behind it. So I guess on a world stage, this would also be countries that haven't had access and people and societies that haven't had access. That flow is now starting to come in, and wealthier countries are starting to palm off their unused vaccines to help with delivering the vaccine. The final card there for them is that some people will still miss out. Access is going to be a problem. Some people aren't going to get it soon enough, and it may be around young people. Some are still going to miss out. That's not a card of equality, even if the intention is starting to move. It's interesting that with all of these groups, there's major cards and court card as their initial reasons why they're taking this stance. And the ambivalent, fearful group, well, naturally they have a card that represents ambivalence and fear and indecision. The ones that seem to have the most successful fight and court challenge to me seems to be this group, the people choosing not to vaccinate for health reasons. But I'm curious about this card, so I am going to draw a clarifier. Tell me about this guy. Wheel of Fortune. Ooh. Wow. Okay. This has me a bit concerned. I was going to say it before. If this card came with the Wheel of Fortune, I'd almost be thinking there was trolling behind it. These two together, to me, are spin doctors. And with these cards, Wheel of Fortune and the Ace of Wands, something is controlling and fueling the passion. Because this is a passionate group. I would think there's a bit of overlap between these two groups, the mistrust and people choosing for health reasons and for their personal choice for their body. But I don't like this. Something's being used as a weapon. The communication is being used as a weapon and it's being financed. Interested to see what any of you guys think about that. In terms of the outcome of their stance, Queen of Swords is either legislation and justice or there's a separation. They separate themselves. So I guess any legal challenge that this group might be making may not be successful in courts. And actually there's news today that one challenge has been already dismissed. Yeah, so even if they're not successful in court, they will continue with their stance as long as this kind of whirlpool of financial support backing their protest. It's unseemly. I don't like it. The second part of this, I'll be using the Illuminati deck, which is really good for political readings. It's really kind of harsh and the imagery is really powerful and has a lot of power in the interaction between the figures. It's quite iridescent and it's called Illuminati, so there you go. So this second part, I'm going to do a read on how those mandates are going, how the challenges to vaccine work mandates will pan out. People are now starting to lose their jobs for not vaccinating. As signifiers, I'll be using the Two of Swords to represent the group of people who are choosing not to vaccinate. And any of these cards from the individual groups, they will also be signifiers in the spread. How will the mandates, vaccine mandates, play out regarding court challenges for people who haven't vaxxed? Seven of Cups, Five of Cups, Seven of Swords, Three of Wands, Prince of Pentacles. Next line, the Hierophant, Queen of Pentacles, Wheel of Fortune right in the middle. Wow. Ace of Pentacles, Four of Wands, Three of Cups, Six of Pentacles, Three of Pentacles, Hanged Man, and final card, the Moon. Sorry, I just had a camera crisis. So I'm going to move all these along. I think that's a bit better. Let me just... Okay. Now, first thing I can see, there's only two cards that came up in the first reading that are in here, and that's the Seven of Cups, who is with the ambivalent fear group, and the Wheel of Fortune, which came up as a clarifier over here with the people choosing not to vaccinate for health reasons. So again, it kind of says that this group around health reasons are involved in something bigger. In some ways, because of this link, I could see it's opportunistic. I'm not saying that people's reasons for health are, but there's extra energies fueling their passion. The other thing I see when I look at these cards, there's no justice or law cards. There's only the Hierophant representing the government system, not necessarily the law courts, but legislation. And that leads me to think that legislation is the thing that will change. And ideally, we want the legislation perhaps to compensate the people who are choosing not to vax. And over here, we've got Four of Wands to make some sort of opening. And this, the Four of Wands, I would see as around border crossings and what you can step into and out of. So even entering venues and restaurants, that sort of thing. But I'm sort of seeing it in a bigger way, legislation around international arrivals, for instance. Before I'm seeing what's there, I'm really seeing what's not there. And the lack of justice and law cards in this reading makes me feel those challenges to the mandate aren't going to be successful. I know the government is putting it off onto employers, and there may be some sort of refund or subsidy or something like that for employers through there. But I was also looking for the Eight of Pentacles or the Three of Pentacles to show me employers. There's Three of Pentacles, actually. Okay, what have we got here? Assuming that court cases for mandates aren't really successful, this line is a little bit iffy because it's showing Seven of Swords, something sneaky, something sneaking around, something underhand, and it's tempting fate, and it's around workers showing their vaccine certificates. So this in a way can be vaccine fraud, how easy it is to fake that you've had the vaccine. And over here we've got money, Queen of Pentacles, following on from legislation, and the Ace of Pentacles, showing that the economics around not vaxing are a predominant force. Even with this one, we've got Three of Wands, which is trade and commerce, and also those overseas arrivals coming in, and the effect of people choosing not to vax on areas where there's trade. Not so much the health workers in here, but the effect on money and the economy. If I go in and read the corners, we start with the confusion and the lack of choice, and people feeling they don't have a choice, and people bombarded with choice. Prince of Pentacles, trying to get a movement happening. It's affecting their work. The Three of Cups here is initial celebration and joining together in community, like people finding each other in the midst of this. But the outcome over here is the Moon, and that's not a good sign. It shows that the passion that they have goes underground or gets distorted, and it might be the way to avoid vaccination is through this sort of fraudulent means. These two aren't good for the court challenges, starting with confusion. So the case presented itself is confusing and complex. But ending down here with the Moon, I just can't say that's a success for court challenges. It seems to me the government will legislate for individual workplaces and individual venues to manage it. The Hanged Man down here in this row would show delays going through in those court challenges, but ultimately the weight of trade and movement and economics, turning that into a bit of a no-go, no-show. This group here, the Three of Pentacles, this has been my apprentice card, so I would link it to construction, but any essential worker who has to show that they've been vaccinated, I can see there is a bit of power and a bit of movement behind that one, but ultimately sitting underneath the Wheel of Fortune and the Seven of Swords, I don't see how this fight can become legitimised or endorsed. Up here in the first row, the Five of Cups shows some losses, but some things still holding. And what might those things be? Well, people still holding out that it's up to fate, and potentially the virulence of COVID is waning, is wearing itself out. So these might be people who are sitting out the court thing and waiting for the power of the virus to actually calm down and dissipate. I also feel that is the genuine grief of people who've lost friends and family to the virus. And this family grief seems to play a part in whether or not people will get the vaccine certificate. With the Six of Pentacles down under this line, the Six of Pentacles may be around compensation, or instead of sacking people, because we haven't got death or tower, or Ten of Swords, saying people will be sacked. But this might be to negotiate more with allowing people who choose not to vaccinate, there we go, to work in a different way. But you also got to say, in terms of a court appeal, there's Six of Pentacles, what we know from yesterday, I'll just get it, or from this morning. New South Wales government wins a landmark court challenge to public health orders. And what this basically is, there were a couple of individual cases of people taking the work mandate to court on the basis of their personal liberty. But the court coming back and saying they weren't forced to vaccinate, that the employers weren't forcing them to vaccinate. They were giving them the choice to be stood down or go and get a vaccination. And this is a Supreme Court challenge, so it's set the benchmark that personal liberty isn't a reason to not get vaccinated. I really think this line is legislation happening, that you can't get in and out of venues or your workplace unless you've shown proof of vaccination. And we already know that's happening. So whatever your choice, stay safe. I hope this has given some sort of insight one way or the other. I'm Merryl Key, and this is my Mystery School. Thanks for supporting my channel. Like, share, follow and subscribe. If you'd like to know more, contact me on my website www.merrylkey.com. Blessed be.